Hi, my name is Swisher, and the presentation that I'm going to be showing you is an 8th grade social studies lesson called Exploring the Americas. I actually did this lesson in front of my principal late last week, and the lesson went very well, so I decided to use it for this assignment. As you will see, my beginning page here, I have the title, the content area, and my grade level, and I've added a beautiful picture of the American flag. As we go over to our next slide, it states the Missouri curriculum standards. As you see, this particular lesson hits on 3 different social studies standards. The first one is 3ACA. The student will evaluate the importance of the discovery, exploration, and early settlement of America. The second one is Missouri 5EA. The student will interpret the age of exploration, including advances in transportation, communication, and other technologies. And the next one, 7BA, is it will compare ways of life, economy, and geography between the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. Over here on the right-hand side, I have the National Education Technology Standards. Technology will be facilitated and inspired by student learning and creativity, as well as modeled through digital age work and learning. Next up, I have the instructional objectives of this lesson. There were 3 objectives, and these objectives were also given to my students at the beginning of the lesson, so they were aware of their expectations and what they would be doing and learning in the class. The first one is the students will read that Vikings were sailors and they were the first Europeans to reach North America using their social studies book and in a time frame of about 10 minutes. Next, the students will learn that Prince Henry the Navigator established a school for sailors and provided financial support that enabled the Portuguese to start exploring the oceans. They'll do this by reading their social studies book and using their class notes, and then they will prepare a small report to discuss with other students, and they'll do that in a small group setting in 15 minutes. Additionally, the students will construct a timeline using their social studies books as a reference. It will portray when the Portuguese sailors sailed around Africa and their newfound sea route that they found to Asia, and they will create this with an accuracy of 90%. Technology was also incorporated during the portions where they're given a certain amount of time. I use my projector, and Kagan has a wonderful selector tools for times, different stopwatches that you can put up there, and I always put those up for my students to see so they know how much longer they have to work. The next slide shows my teacher prep and active participation. Up top, you'll see the teacher prep. I used my Understanding by Design book. I'm also in another graduate class right now, and it is all about designing a lesson to help your students be better engaged, more focused. So I used that book to help establish my goals for the lesson and identify the content standards and learning outcomes. I then chose what essential questions would be used to guide my student inquiry, and I did that by reading the social studies book and reviewing video content. I also used my Missouri State standards to guide that as well. I then recognized and targeted the knowledge and skills that my students would need to complete these tasks during the lesson, and I did that by bookmarking specific pages in my manual. I created a PowerPoint covering the main ideas in the section.
An interruption at this time.
And then I also had to find an appropriate video that depicted the importance of the Vikings and that also kind of grabbed their interest. The active participation throughout this lesson, they were planned to first, the students were previewed the section of the reading, and I gave them the 3 main objectives, as well as I introduced the academic vocabulary that they would be using during the section of that chapter. They then completed a task by using their book to identify the terms on a worksheet, a vocabulary worksheet. I then introduced my students to the first section of the chapter 2 in their books. I read them a prompt that familiarizes them with this section, and it also provoked an interesting question and really got them thinking. They then used a colored note card that was given to them at the beginning of class time, and they wrote their answer on there. They were given about 5 minutes, and then they were asked to pair up with members of the class who had the same color of note card as them, and they discussed their answers and opinions. I also taught them the big ideas of the lesson by using a projector to display a video over the Vikings and then a PowerPoint that displayed the main ideas of the section while they followed along using prompted notes. They were fill-in-the-blank type notes that I created for them. And last, the students will develop a timeline that portrays the significant events involving the section of their book. As you'll see on the next slide, this is a video that I showed to my class about the Vikings. I put it actually is very interesting. It's only about 2 minutes. Actually, yeah, about 2 minutes, so it's on here. You are more than welcome to watch it. It's quite interesting and mysterious. The kids really enjoyed it. On the next slide, I have my adaptations for learners. I have a couple ESOL students in my class and 2 SPED kids. I usually modify my lessons by partnering them with higher learners. I give lots of visuals. I modify their lessons, and I also give prompted notes on a daily basis. Next, the assessment and evaluation for this lesson. Progress towards the objectives was determined by visually checking for understanding. While they were doing their group work, I walked around the room and I spoke with many students to check for their understanding. I also collected their note cards of their small report, and I graded their timelines. Additionally, the day after this lesson, they were given a small assessment to determine their understanding of the content. Feedback was provided to the students by the use of verbal cues during class discussion, as well as written feedback about the students' timelines, and then any relevant comments on their summative assessment that were necessary I put on there as well. Over on the right hand side, variations for the lesson. This lesson I believe could be used in other grade levels as well as other content areas. The use of group discussion, PowerPoints, notes, videos could be used in any subject matter. For example, I also teach communication arts. I could use this lesson and just pop in my communication arts content area. I do this very often. For example, if I was talking about a specific author, we could create a timeline on that author's life and their significant writing pieces. I could show a video on that author. We could have group discussion and also use PowerPoints to take notes on that author. I also added a lovely little picture over here on the right hand side to keep you interested during my presentation. The 8th slide is the actual instruction of my lesson. I'm not going to read every single step, but as you will see, I've numbered it on the left hand side, and I began from the very beginning when I introduced this section all the way to the next slide where it shows my closing of the lesson. My last slide is a list of my references. I used my United States history beginnings to 1877, my teacher's edition, and this is a picture of that. I also used my textbook for my other understanding by design, my instructional design class. In addition to, this is the reference for the YouTube video that I showed my class. Looks like that sums up my project. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about exploring the Americas and what an 8th grade social studies lesson might look like. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.